Okay, so we're off, and yeah, so today we're going to talk about graphics. And if I get my workbench again, so again I'm running a station on my PC. I've just logged into that station, and if I go to the root, I see my first graphic. So this is the home page graphic for this station. And if I click on a link on this graphic, I'll go to another graphic. So the idea is that we build a complete user interface using the graphics. So that everything that the customer wants to see or needs to see, they can do that via a graphic page. So if we go back via the back button up here, we're back to the main home page graphic. And if we edit that graphic, so this little icon up here on the toolbar toggles between viewing the graphic and editing the graphic. When we edit the graphic, on the right hand side we get a palette just for the graphics. And we can control what's displayed on this palette using the sidebar icon here next to edit. Okay, so currently we're showing the bound ords palette, the widget tree. We're not showing the properties or the layers, and then we can show individual properties. So if I untick that box, now I'm just showing two things, the widget tree and the bound ords. If we look at the widget tree, it's a graphic consists of a list of widgets. Okay, the very first widget is the pane for the graphic. So in this case, it's a border pane, and it's pretty much got nothing special about it. We then go down one level and we get the canvas pane. So the canvas pane lets us draw, it's like the canvas of a picture. It lets us put objects onto that pane, and every object on that pane sits in a position that's relative to the top left-hand corner. So the top left-hand corner of the pane is 0, 0. And then if you travel along, the x-axis increases, and as you travel down, the y-axis increases. So when we look at this node here, this label, which is a widget, and we double click, we can see that in the layout, we can see the position. So it's traveled along 760 pixels, and it's traveled down 100. Okay, and the size and the width and height of the object is there. Okay, so if we wanted to, we could change that. So if we made that 860, sorry, we'll make it 660. We make it less and go OK. Now that's moved over to the left 100 pixels. We can put the right button, relocate it back to where we want it. Double click, and it's back to 765. If I wanted to make it, I can just make it 760 and OK. So that's how things are positioned on the canvas pane. Okay. So this is just a standard label. Here's another one. Another label, and so on. Okay. If I double click this label, we can see that the text is defined as level 1, and that's what we're seeing displayed. The foreground color is orange. The background color is default, which means invisible. Okay. And if we take away the value binding for now, so we just remove that. So now we've got just a label. Okay. So if we save that and run this graphic, go back to displaying the graphic. If I put my mouse over one of these objects I get to navigate to somewhere, if I go over this one, nothing happens. And that's because this label does not have any binding. It's not bound to anything in the system. If I want to add the binding, I can click on this button here and add a binding. And the most useful, most common binding we have is the value binding. Okay. If I select that and go OK, it's now added a value binding down here. Okay. Now, one of the things for a value binding is the hyperlink. And this is what we navigate to when we click on that label. Okay, so if I look at my hyperlink, currently it's null, meaning there is no hyperlink. But if I click here on the right-hand side, I can go and choose a component. So this icon here, I can drop down and choose a component, so component chooser. I'm now displaying everything below the config on the station. Okay, if I expand out my drivers, my backnet network, my building A, my level 1. If I select level 1 and go OK, so I've now going to hyperlink to a component called level 1, and I'm going to display the default view of that component. I could choose to display the graphic or the AX property sheet and so on. If I choose default view, it'll pick the first in the list, which is graphic. So default view and graphic will give me the same result. So I'll stay with default view, go OK and OK, save that. All right, so now go back to normal, click on here, and I've now navigated to my backnet network building A level 1. So I'm displaying the graphic for level 1. I could have got the same thing by going drivers, backnet network, building A level 1. If I double click, it displays the same thing. If I right click, display the property sheet, that's what I see. And you'll see one of the properties is a property called graphic. And in there, I nominate a PX file. So when I display a graphic, I'm displaying a PX file. Okay, so that is in graphics floors level 1 PX. So if I work my way down here to my files, graphics, floors, level 1 PX. So if I double click here, I see the same graphic, but this time I'm looking at it via here, via that path, graphics, files, graphics, floors, level 1 px. Okay, if I navigate back to my home, I've gone back to my home page, click on level 1. I've now gone to buildings A, level 1. Okay, so just so that was level 1. If I want to edit my graphic, add in level 2, duplicate, position it there, double click, change level 1 to level 2, change my hyperlink from level 1 to level 2. Okay, okay, okay. And still remember at level, my hyperlink for level 2 was default view. Okay, okay, and I save it. Display my graphic, go level 2, and it's displaying, it's gone, navigated to that spot, but it's displaying the AX device manager. And if I drop down here, I don't have a graphic view. Okay, if I look in my property sheet, I don't have a graphic defined as one of my properties. If I go back to here, drop this down and choose new view, I can add a graphic and I can choose a PX file to display. If I look here in my graphics, floors, we are at level 2, so I choose level 2 PX and save and OK. The file already exists and I'm going to reuse that file. I don't want to overwrite it, I want to reuse it. So now level 2 has a graphic associated with it. Okay. And if I now go back to my home, click on level 2, I go straight to level 2. Okay. Go back to my home. Now, if I click on level 1, again, I'm displaying a graphic. If I look at this graphic, if I edit this graphic, I've got a scroll pane and a canvas pane, a whole lot of buttons, a rectangle and a picture. So the picture here is the level 1 JPEG in this folder, graphics, floors, L1 JPEG. Okay. And that's this background image here, the floor plan. If I looked at level 2, it would be this, level 3, level 4, and so on. But I'm looking at level 1 JPEG. Okay. And then I'm sitting on top of that JPEG. I have buttons. So everything, every widget has an order. So the picture here is at the bottom of the list, so it's the background image. Everything else is on top of this image. This rectangle here is that rectangle up the top there. The bound label is here. And if we double click that bound label, we'll see that it's bound to the slot, meaning it displays the name of the slot, which is level 1. Okay. Now, if we wanted this button here, which is South 2, let's choose West 1. So this button here, we double click and we want to hyperlink to component chooser, drivers, backnet network, building a level 1 VAV1. Okay. 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 So I save that, come out of there, click on here. It navigates to VAV1 on level 1. Okay, I go back and I'm here. Yep. Now, at the moment, if I double click this bound label here, this is what I've bound it to. Okay, so the full path, level 1 VAV01. Okay. If I take that hyperlink binding and copy it, so Control C, and then I make it my ORD binding, go OK. So this is the value binding part of, so we're going to get the value from this point here, and we want to display it as our text. So at the moment our text is just this string, WST1, okay? But instead, if I right click on my text and animate my text, and it will now go to the object that I'm bound to, and it'll display the value of that object. So if I go OK and OK, this is what I now see. Backnet device VAV01. All right. Another one now that I've animated this text box, when I click over here, instead of displaying the whole name, I could use display name. I go OK to that and OK to that. It now displays VAV01. Okay, so that name is coming from the binding. It's coming from just trying to resize it. So it's that name there, is that text there. If I rename this to VAV0101, and save it, come out of here, go back in here, I've broken my binding, okay, because this is bound to VAV01. So if I go to my binding here and change it from VAV01 to VAV0101, okay, okay, my binding is now correct and it's displaying the new name. Okay, so same deal, I go undo all that, so rename this back to 01, go in here, rename this binding back to 01, and we're back to normal. Okay. So if I wanted to do VAV number 2, I can duplicate this button. So delete that button. Drag this one up here. Double click. Change this to O2. Go OK. Go OK. It's now VAV02. Okay. So if I go back to my normal displaying VAV01. So what happened there? I go back, click on here, displays VAV01. Go back, click here, also VAV01. So if we go back and edit this graphic, our hyperlink is still pointing to VAV01, where it should be 2. Okay, so we needed to change both things, the ORD and the hyperlink. Okay. So just to do that one more time, duplicate this, put it over here, double click, change this to O3. Okay, change this to O3. Okay, both of them are O3. Go OK. Save it, run it. VAV03 on level 1. Okay. Now, if we wanted to put the temperature for VAV1 onto this graphic, we could go here to points. That's the zone temperature, and we want to put it on this graphic. Okay, so we edit the graphic, we grab our zone temperature, and we drag and drop it. And we get the make widget. And if we choose bound label, and we format our text as display name, we can go OK. And now we've got displaying ZNT. If we try that again, drag over, and instead of display name, we choose %.%, go OK. We're displaying the temperature plus the status. Okay. So if we double click that and look at our binding, we're binding to the ZNT, the zone temperature. If we expand this out a bit, we've got an output, a status, and a value. If we choose value, go OK, OK, OK. We're now displaying just the value without the status. Okay. In this one, we're displaying the display name. In this one, we're just displaying the value. So dot gets replaced by the value. And the binding here was zone temperature out value. Now we can go OK to that and OK to that. So in practice, we would delete this guy and we would just put this temperature like that. VAV1 and the VAV1 temperature. If we're happy with that, we could duplicate it, stick it over here. Double click and change it to VAV2. And away we go. Duplicate it, stick it over here, go here, change it to VAV03. Okay. So these are the bound labels that we've just added. These are the buttons that we've added. This is the button that we started with. These are all the old buttons that were already on this graphic. Just to tidy it up, I'll remove them. So I can do that just by, if I go shift click, I select all those buttons, including that one. So I don't want to get rid of the home button. So let me go down the list here and find which one's the home button. The last one's the home button, so I'll do there, through to there, and delete all of those buttons. So there I've got 3 VAVs, but you could do all 10 VAVs if you wanted to. Yep. So I save that, I run that. Now I'm displaying the temperature for VAV3 and I can navigate to the VAV3. Okay. Now right now, if I look at this point here, it's got the full, the ord starts at the station and travels all the way down the tree. So if I copy that, put it in there, so it's starting at the station, drivers, BACnet network, building a level 1 VAV03 zone temperature out value. So if we look in here, there's $20. Okay. So where we have building a $20, what that really means that's the same as saying building a space. Okay. So building space A. That's because $20 is equal to space. So same for level 1. So level $201 equals level space 1. And then ZN2DT is equal to ZN dash T. Okay, and that's because $2D is equal to a dash. All right. So what actually going on here, it says that whenever you see a dollar sign, it's followed by 2 characters, which is the hexadecimal for the character. So 20 is hex code for the space character. 2D is the hex code for the dash character. Okay, so you don't need to know what these are exactly. You just need to know that when you see something that looks like this, where you start seeing $20A, what you're seeing there, the $20 is replacing a character like space or dash and so on. Yeah. So anytime you see dollar followed by 2 characters like 2D or 20, it's representing a single character. Okay. So that's what's going on there when you see dollar signs. Yeah.
David?
Yep.
Is there any document which has the list of all these hex characters? Earlier you used like a dot and display name, this kind of things.
Yeah. So I've got a spreadsheet that I created. Which has got the hexadecimal, so this column here, 20 gives me a space, 21 is exclamation mark, 22 is double quote, and so on. And so when we get to 2D, we get the dash. So this is standard ASCII, so I can share this spreadsheet. Yeah, I can share this spreadsheet, so it's got that information in it. Now, the other thing you referred to is when we animate this text, we display $. So this language here, or this format, is called B format string. All right, and there's a very short description of it there. Okay, but there's also a whole document on the B format string. All right, so I can dig out that document and share that as well. So most common ones you will see is percent dot percent and percent display name percent. If I go in here, get out of that. If I put something before this, I can say zone temperature and go OK. OK. It now says zone temperature 0.0 degrees C. Okay, so text percent sign followed by the bound value. Okay.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep.
Please share the documents later. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So where were we? So we've got our bindings here. Leave that one there as an example. We're all good. So these bindings here is the full path. If we choose to, in our bound ords palette up here, we can see the collection of all of the bindings. So that's the binding for the button. This is the binding for the point, that button, that point, and so on. And this here is the binding for this label up here. Now, if we relativize these bindings, so in this page, if I click here, what happens is it takes this long binding and makes it into a shorter binding, a relative binding. So this is saying the slot that I launched the graphic from was level 1. So I launched the graphic from level 1, and then I want to display the VAV underneath VAV01, and then VAV01 points zone temperature out. Okay, then VAV02, VAV02 temperature, VAV03, VAV03 temperature. If I choose to make these changes, now my bindings are all relative to this slot. Okay, because that's the slot that I launched the graphic from. Okay, now if I save this graphic and run it, it still works. I'm still looking at my level 1 VAV, my level 2 VAV, sorry, my VAV2, my VAV3. Okay. And my level 1 graphic if I look at my AX property sheet, level 1 is taking me to floors level 1. But what say, instead of, just so we had the same floor plan for every level. So instead of my level 1 PX file, if I duplicate that and call it call it standard level. So I've now got a graphic called standard level. Okay. Now if I go back to my level 1, and instead of level 1 here, I say standard level. Save it. Go back. Double click level 1, and I'm looking at it's all working as I expect. If I go to my level 2, double click, I'm looking at level 2. If I look at my property sheet for my graphic, it's the level 2. If I change that to standard level, save it, double click level 2, it says level 2, VAV1, VAV2, VAV3 with their values. If I click on level 2, sorry, VAV2, level 2, VAV2. Okay. Do the same thing on level 3. Create a new view called graphic and bind it to the standard level. Okay. Reuse that graphic. So now I'm looking at level 3, VAV1 on level 3. VAV2 on level 3. If I go back to my home page, I can edit this level 2, duplicate, double click, change this text to level 3, hyperlink to level 3, go OK, OK. So now click here, click on level 3, displays level 3, takes me to VAV3 on level 3. Okay, so that's the power of relative odds. Okay, so by having relative odds means that you can have the same graphic and use it over and over again. So our VAV graphic, all of the bindings in here are all relative, which is why we can use this same graphic for the VAV1 on level 1 or VAV3 on level 3. We just, where we watch it from is what we bind it to. So that's level 1. If we go down here, level 3, level 3. Click here, VAV3, level 3. Okay, so there's any questions on any of that? Okay, so one of the questions is, what are the allowed drawing format for the background? So if we go back to our level 1, this background image here, if we go edit, we're clicking on the picture object, and the image file that we display can be PNG, JPEG, GIF, or SVG. Okay, so SVG is scalar vector graphics. So a program like Visio can save in SVG format. JPEG, pretty standard. PNG is also standard. And then GIF gives you the option to animate as well. Okay. So they're the standard image files that you can use. PNG, JPEG, GIF, or SVG. Okay. And when we select these files, we're drawing them from the files inside the station. So if this was a FX80, it would have a folder called graphics, and then it would have another folder called floors. Because we're running this station on my laptop, when I click on files on the station, these are the files that are contained within the station. But I've also got files on my C drive. So if I go up a level, I've now got my C drive, and I can move around, pick up a graphic, and so on. Yeah. So anything on my C drive is available, but for it to get down into the FX80, it's got to be copied into files on the station. Okay. So that it gets transferred. Now, when we look at our station, this is our station config. Then below config, you've got a folder called files, and it's got graphics, floors, system graphics. So these are all the standard system graphics that we use to create our standard graphics. So for example, that VAV graphic that we started with, it comes from somewhere in here, FX VMA single duct graphic. So that's our starting point. Our zoning graphic looks like that. Our heat pump graphic. If we look at our system graphics, somewhere in here we'll have a chiller graphic, central cooling, central cooling. Now, when you look at it like this, it looks pretty empty. But if you edit it, there's actually a lot of items here. And because these items aren't connected to anything real. For example, the things they're bound to don't exist, then that item doesn't get displayed. So this means that you can have, when we go back to our VAV examples that we've got, it's like here. If we have electric heating on some VAVs, but not on others, then we can have a common graphic which has an electric heater, but only when we have the electric heater points exist will the electric heater be displayed. Okay. So now if we go to our graphic within a bit more detail, just to show how things actually work. So if I go to my config, Facility Explorer. So yesterday we created some wiresheet logic. Today, if we add a new view and add a graphic to that folder, we go up.
Hello, what do you call E drive?
Graphics, and if I go.
So, no, you won't, can you find anything?
I'm just looking for an empty.
So stop on shares.
An empty graphic.
And what's your VON?
Example graphic, okay? So I've added a graphic view to this folder and I've called it example graphic. And I go OK. I'm going to reuse that graphic. And there we have it. So it's displaying custom control because that's the node or the slot that launched this graphic. If I now edit it and bring my zone temperature in, drag it and drop it, I can bring it in as a bound label. And it comes in with black text.
Yeah, so
if I want to change my foreground color to orange. Okay, there it is. And like before, we can change the binding to be the zone temperature out value. Actually, we'll leave it like that. We'll make the font a bit bigger. So our font, we'll make that 16. So that's our, if we duplicate that and we bind the same point, but this time, this time we go further down the tree to out value. We get just the 21.6, 27. If we duplicate that again, and this time instead of value we go status, go OK, OK, OK. We get the status. So when we bind to the zone temperature directly, we get the value and the status. If we go further down the tree to the out value, that's what we see. If we go to the out status, that's what we see. Now, if we go, we don't have any units, so it's not degrees Celsius. If we double click our zone temperature, save that graphic and change our facets to have units of temperature, Celsius, OK, OK, save. So now it displays 21.3 degrees C. We go back to our graphic. We've got the units. So the units are part of the out value. Okay, so this is by far the most useful way to display the point. But these are our other options as well. Yep. Now another way we can get the same result is if we bind it to the zone temperature. So we're displaying the value and the status. But then we go to our text, and instead of having a dot in here, we have display name. What do we get? We got zone temperature. Okay. If we had in here we had out dot value. Okay. Now, if we do that process again, we drag our zone temperature over, but this time we use make display label name, and we'll change our format to, we'll leave it as, let's call it out dot value. We're bringing in a bound label, go OK. This time we get the label and the value. And if we view our properties, we can change our font to 16, and we can change our foreground color to orange. And away we go. Same thing, take this, drag him and drop him, but this time if we choose from the palette or a workbench view or a time plot, let's choose a time plot, go OK. Okay, so now we've got a graph that's drawing in real time. Okay, if we want to edit that, we can do the y-axis. We can set it to be, say, 15 to 30. Okay. So while we've got this open, it'll start drawing a graphic. So we got that by dragging an object onto the page and choosing time plot. Okay. If we choose action override, go OK. We just put an override button on there. Save that, look at that. Click on override, and we can override the value to 26 for 1 minute. Okay, they've all gone to 26. Okay, and the status has changed to overridden at priority 8. Now if we look at something like how, that's a good example. I've got a cooling point here that goes on and off. If I drag that onto the page and I want to do something from the palette, and if I choose the Kit PH HVAC palette, coils, cooling coil, go OK. There's my cooling coil. If I double click and look at that, I've bound that to the cool. I've got an image When it's true, it displays the true GIF. When it's false, it displays this image. Okay. Okay. So we're not cooling at the moment because it's 21 degrees. Temperature's going down. Now it's on the way up. At some point, it'll start cooling. Oh no, it's started to go down before it started cooling. That's all right. If we edit this, we're somewhere we've got a heating output, drag that onto the page, do the same thing, but instead we choose a heating coil, go OK. There's our heating coil. Temperature goes up, hopefully the heating coil will turn off. No, didn't get warm enough. So just to show you what's in there, again, we're bound to the heating object, and we've got an image that's got a true value and a false value. So that's what the false coil looks like. So heating coil false, heating coil true, heating coil false. Yeah. So when the heating is false, we show the false image. When it's true, we show the true image. Okay, okay. If we take that same point here, drop it there, but this time we just bind the label as out value, go OK. It's sitting there and it's currently on. That will change the foreground color to orange so we can see it. Now it's off and the picture has changed. We can duplicate this, stick it over here under the cooling, double click, change our binding to be cooling rather than heating. Okay, okay. If we wanted to have an analog value, so I've got an outside air damper here, and put that on the page as a bound label. And I can do the foreground color while I'm here. Solid orange. Okay, okay. So here's my outside air damper. If I bring that outside air damper in again, but this time from the palette, I choose damper vertical, and go OK. There's my damper. Okay, so 100% outside air, the cooling's just turned off, the damper's starting to close off. Opening back up again. cooling's come back on. Okay, so if we have a look at this detail, we're bound to the outside air damper, and our image is a series of images. So as our bound value goes from 0 to 20%, we display V1, 20 to 40 is V2, 40 to 60 is V3, 60 to 80 is V4, 80 to 100 is V5. And if we look at V2, for example, it's a damper that's partially closed. V1 is fully closed, partial, more, about 50%, bit more, and then 100% is V5. And horizontal, the same set of images. So here we've got we take the value and we assign a different image for the different damper positions. Okay, okay. My Boolean writable point here, if I rename that to say something like fan. Okay. Drag that, drop that on the page. I'm choosing from the palette, and if I go equipment, somewhere in here will be a fan right. I go OK. Got one of those. And I save it. So it's currently off. If I right click here, action, set it to on, the fan starts running. If I look at the binding for that, the image, again, there's the true, and this time it's a GIF file, a true GIF or a false GIF. So the true GIF is the fan running, the false GIF is the fan stopped. Fan left, fan right. So it's I'll change them to left. Change this to left. Okay, okay. Now my fan's going that way. My heater's on, my outside air damper's closed. Okay. So this is in HVAC equipment. For the kit PX HVAC equipment, we could go up one level. And go PX, system graphics file. Let's have a look on. No, it's not. Probably the easiest way to do this is bring the fan in again. And this time, instead of kit PX HVAC, let's go kit PX. Nothing there. Okay. So if I select my temperature and I go to the hyperlink and I choose my temperature and then choose chart as my view, go OK. So I've made a hyperlink to the chart for this temperature. If I go OK, save it, edit. Now when I move over there, I get a navigate button and it calls up a chart for that temperature. Okay, or my history for that temperature. I go back, I'm back at my graphic. If I wanted to have a start and a stop button for my fan, okay, I edit that, take my fan, drag it, drop it, and go from my palette, which was an action button. And I'm gonna command it to on. The text is start. And then I'm going to duplicate it. Double click. Set it to inactive to stop. Okay, save it. Okay, now if I click on stop, do I want it to be permanent? Say okay. If I start, I can start for 1 minute. And it didn't start. If you don't want this to pop up, we can cancel that, edit, double click, and I think in here, for the action argument, we don't prompt the user. Okay, so it's always going to be permanent. Same for the stop. Don't prompt the user. Okay, okay, save it, run it, start, stop. So the reason it doesn't start is because in here we have a minimum inactive time of 30 seconds. So in 30 seconds time, it should start. There we go. Same for the stop. It's got a minimum active time. That timer has to time out and then it'll stop. Okay. So is there any questions on any of that?
There's a question in the chat.
Oh yeah.
How to set the value box color status, example, alarm override offline. I think you want to have different colors on the box based on the value.
Okay, so if we edit this, so if I double click this one, he has got, there's the status effect option down here. We can drop that down and go color and blink. Go OK. So now when we go and run this, if I right click on this and override it to 25, it changes color to purple because it's overridden. If I right click and set it back to auto, it goes back. Right click, emergency override to 18. Again, it goes back to purple. If I had, this is my zone temperature here on the left, I've got an outer range alarm. If I set that alarm limit is 28 and 18, but if I made that, say, 23 and 21.5, it's overridden and it's in alarm. I right click, release the override. Sorry, emergency auto. And we need to so it's in alarm. Okay, I go here. If I find that alarm somewhere, if I go to my services, alarm service, is it critical alarm? Yep, so that's it. I acknowledge it. You go back. Now it's not flashing because it's acknowledged, but it's still in alarm. At some point it'll go back to normal, but it still needs to be acknowledged. So I can go here and acknowledge it, and it clears it out of here because it's now normal. Everything's back to normal. And it might go into high alarm at some point. There we go. It's back into alarm. So another way we can do the same thing is if we go edit, and this is bound to the zone temperature. You can have, if you choose blink, you can right click and animate. And if we go status to simple, we can say I want it to blink when it's in alarm, but for everything else I want it to be not blinking. So I can go OK, OK. So it's blinking because it's in alarm. And at some point it'll go out of alarm and stop blinking. Oh no, it's going to stay in alarm. I go to here and acknowledge it. Go back. This one stops blinking, but this one is on the alarm state, so that's why it's still blinking, because it's still in alarm. This goes low enough. No, it's not going to get to go out of alarm. If I choose image here, I can right click and animate the image. For status. So when it's in alarm, I can choose an image to display. What have we got? I'll just display that for now. So when it's in alarm, it'll display this image. Otherwise, it'll display no image. Okay, there it is. It's displaying that image because it's in alarm. And it's blinking because it's in alarm. If I go back here and change my outer range alarm to be, say, at the moment I go into high alarm at 23. If I make that 25, save it, 25 with a 1 degree deadband. So go below 24 and it goes back to normal. This stops flashing, stops displaying the icon. If it goes over 25, starts flashing the icon. If I go to my alarm console, and acknowledge it, clears it out completely. So now it's back to normal. So if all of these items here where it shows the bound ORD, that's because they've been animated. Okay, so the text has been animated to display out value. The image has been animated to display this image when it's in alarm, and no other image. The blinking has been animated to blink when it's in alarm and not to blink for everything else. And so on. You could change the border color by animating it. You can even change the font, make the font bigger or smaller, a different color by animating it. Same with the foreground, which is the text color. So all of these items here, even the alignment, can be animated. Okay. So it's just gone low alarm. It's gone normal. It's gone low alarm again. Okay, so one last option. If I go back. So this graphic that we just created is sitting down in my files, graphics, and this one was called, what did I call it? To see what it's called, if I go here to my property sheet, it's called example graphic under sys graphics files. So sys graphic file, example graphic. If I duplicate that and call it schedule graphic. Okay. Now if I double click my schedule graphic, I'm seeing the exact same thing, but this time if I go edit and if I select all of these items, probably easier to select them over here and just delete. Okay, so I'm back to a blank graphic for my schedule graphic. If I go over here and find one of my schedules, if I look in my broadcast, I think I got some schedules in here somewhere. Okay. Oh, I guess in my optimal start, where was that optimal start? There's my occupancy schedule for my optimal start. If I grab that schedule and drop it on the page, if I choose Workbench view, then I can display the scheduler view. I go OK to that, and then I expand it out. Okay. So now I've got a schedule. I've got a schedule that displays the graphic. Sorry, a graphic that displays the schedule. I can edit it, and then I have to go up here and save it, or I can go here and save it. Okay. So if I went back to my custom control graphic, and edit that. I can grab one of these buttons, duplicate it, put it up here, change it to time schedule, and bind it to that graphic that I just created. So that's a file, and it was on systems graphic file, schedule graphic, open, okay, okay. My time schedule. I can click here, and it didn't work, so I just check my binding. Oh no, because that, got to copy that and make it the I want to take away this action binding by clicking here, and then I want to add a value binding with a hyperlink to the graphic. Okay, save it, run it, time schedule. Displays the time schedule. Go back. And so on. So in my custom control here, I've got in this folder, I've got a string constant called description. So if I go and drag that onto the page as a bound label, okay. And I want the color to be orange. I've got a description of this unit, computer room 1. I run that, I can right click that set and change that label to something else like that. Computer room 5A. Okay, so that's just, we look back at this as a wire sheet. Somewhere on here is that description. There it is, the description object, which is a string constant with the value computer room 5A. So you could add that description to your VAVs so that you've got a description of what the VAV does, and so on. So is there any questions on my animated graphic like GIF file? Do you have a maximum size for the GIF file. Not really, that's just the yeah, so file size. The short answer is there's no real limit that I've seen. The file does have to be hosted in the FX80 and it has to load into the browser. So if the file is too large, it'll take time to load and be slow to display. But these are GIF files are fairly efficient from a file size point of view. So yeah, so there isn't any realistic limit that I've seen for GIF files, and likewise for JPEG and PNG. So you should just try and keep the file size reasonable. Yeah.
I've got some questions, David.
Yep.
Yeah, first one is we're using the graphics from the standard library, which is the kit files.
Yep.
These are Niagara graphics, or do we have any special JCI graphics in FX to differentiate from the other flavors of Niagara in the market? That's the first question.
Yep.
Second question is, how about 3D backgrounds like floor plans and all that? And the third question is, have we covered user views and how to map graphics to user views? So yeah, those are my questions.
Yeah. So the graphics that we have, the graphics libraries that we have, what's the best way? So we have these are our current standard graphics. And so all Tritium systems will be using the same PX file structure, if you like. So they'll all be using a similar type of graphic whereby you have, that's a bit of ductwork. So that'll be a fan like that when it's on, like that when it's off, and so on. So we have our these are our standard graphics. I'm not sure how they compare to what other companies are offering. From these standard graphics, you can build your own custom graphics. If you don't have a standard application, you can start with one of these standard graphics using everything we've covered today as far as getting them to work. So these,
the PCT graphics are JC graphics?
yes. Yeah.
Right.
So these graphics here specifically fit the standard CCT. So CCT, PCT, same. So the standard applications that you get in CCT map to these standard graphics. So mixed air dual duct is that one there. mixed air single duct, mixed air single duct with zoning, and so on. Multi-zone, boiler, and so on. So these don't actually look, you don't get to see what these look like until you've actually got the boiler application in behind. Yeah. Central cooling, again, we don't really see it until it's working. So yeah, to show how to demonstrate a standard graphic, we pretty much would go into CCT, do the system select for, say, central plant chillers with a cooling tower. If we went through that selection, generated a CAF file, imported that CAF file into our station as a device, then the graphic that we got would match that system selection. That's our power meter. Yeah. So these are all these standard graphics are sitting underneath our PCT and elsewhere. So there's a set of graphics with HX on the end. So their target device is a mobile, is a browser running in a mobile device like a smartphone or a tablet, and they're using a much simpler format where the screen size is smaller and there's no JavaScript being used in the display. So much simpler browser-only graphics, if you like. So that's what all these HX variation of the graphic is. And if we go back to our VAV, say this guy, he's got graphic, he's got a HX version of this graphic, which looks like that. Okay. And when you set up the user, in my, let's look at my admin user, for example, in my web profile, I'm looking at HTML HX. If I change that to handheld HX for my mobile web profile, it means that if I log in using a mobile device, then it will display the HX graphic, not the PX graphic, if that makes sense. So this VAV here has got the standard graphic, and then it's got the HX version of the graphic, which looks like that. Okay. So any other questions on?
Yeah, David, what if we want to do like 3D backgrounds for floor plans?
Okay, yep. So the floor plan we did, this one here, this back, it's, yeah, all what you do is create that 3D background in a third-party editing tool, so a graphic tool like AutoCAD or Visio, and then save it as a PNG or a JPEG or so on. So we don't have a 3D drawing tool as part of this, the graphics package. So the background image is pretty much created outside of Facility Explorer. Yeah.
Got it.
Oh, hello, David.
Hey, Jing.
Yeah, I just like to check, is the background resolutions if we automatic resize according to the screen, like a full HD and a HD type of screens?
So you, when in the setup here, if we edit this graphic, the canvas, so we've got our scroll pane, which means that if the canvas is bigger than the screen, then there'll be scroll bars will appear. If we go to the canvas, we get to nominate the view size in pixels, and then we let it, then we can control how much it's scaled by. And when we scale it, how does it scale? So with these settings, if I go OK, save it, run it, I get rid of the sidebar by, so it's resizing up to the point that I allow it to resize, then it scrolls, yeah? So you get to control how it resizes with those two settings as part of the canvas pane. So this is its natural size, 1300 by 940, and then we can scale it up to that size, and then we can scale it down to half of that size. Yeah. And then when we scale it, we fit to ratio, meaning that the proportions are maintained.
David, so this means that it's better for us to scale a bigger resolution, so when we resize the pictures will be look good.
Yeah, so I guess if you know what size for the project, if you know what the screen size is, if they're expecting to have large monitors on site and they want to have graphics that fill the monitor, they want to have large graphics on site, then you should work out these settings based on that. Yeah. But if they're going to display it on a tablet, or we don't really know what they're going to display it on, then you could set them up just using the default settings.
All right. Thank you, David. Thank you. Thanks.
Right. Any other question, guys?
Okay. All right. If there's no more questions, then I'll stop the recording, and we'll be. Oh yeah, we need to decide if we're back on Thursday or not. So yeah, at this stage we'll run the Thursday session, but if that doesn't work, then let me know and we can reschedule it for later.
Is everybody okay with the Thursday session?
It's a public holiday Thursday for you guys, that's all. So
Yeah, I guess it's fine.
yeah, okay. So we'll go again on Thursday, and it'll be doing point extensions, alarms, trends, totalization. And then Friday we'll do the Niagara network. And then the following Tuesday we'll have a final recap and Q&A. Okay. All right, good. Thank you. And I'll see you all on Thursday.
All right. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David.
Thanks, mate. Bye.
Thank you, David.
Thanks.
Thank you.